The Italian America show is sponsored by Full Sponsorship, Cento Fine Foods, trust your family with our family. The Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors who handle criminal matters, domestic violence, and municipal court throughout the state of New Jersey. Dr. K, the management professor and author of Rockstar Manager, From Theory to Practice. The authors of the #1 international best-selling cookbook, Don't Cut the Basil, 5 Generations of Authentic Italian Recipes. Dr. Mark D'Annunzio, National 4th Vice President, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. The Grand Lodge of New York. The Grand Lodge of Delaware. The Grand Lodge of Ohio. The Grand Lodge of Virginia. The Grand Lodge of Rhode Island. The Grand Lodge of Maryland. The Grand Lodge of the Northwest, representing Oregon and Washington. Long Shot Productions, get back in the game. ACMT, Excellence in Aerospace Manufacturing. And by Silver Spring Capital. Silver Spring Capital Wealth Management is a proud and longtime supporter of the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America.
Hello, my name is Bob Bianchi, and I'm honored to be the National President of the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. We are the largest and oldest Italian-American organization in the United States, and our men and women have donated tens of millions of dollars since our inception for numerous charities, disaster relief, scholarships for our youth, as well as our veterans causes, just to name a few. But something that's also very important are our committees that we have in the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. Then that includes the Women's Action Committee. And I have these two lovely ladies with me who are the chair people who will introduce themselves in a moment as to the Women's Action Committee and what it does. But I want to talk to you about a very, very important message. It's our deep belief that as an organization that we're not only assisting ourselves like we have since the inception of the organization, it's about helping a broader community at large. And since October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we decided it may not be a bad idea to have a partner with a service, JBWS, a Jersey Battered Women's Shelter, who are an amazing group of people who assist people in the plague of domestic violence that's occurring in this country. And COVID certainly didn't make it any better. This multi-part series ranges from everything about what to do if you're a victim of domestic violence or teen dating, financial responsibilities and concerns that you may have, and a whole spectrum of issues that people, men and women, who are victims of domestic violence confront when they have a situation like that. So we are really, really proud of this series and proud of these two ladies here right now. And Linda and Lynn, if you don't mind, can you just introduce yourselves? I'll start with you, Linda, if you don't mind, and we'll go forward. Tell us a little bit about the Women's Action Committee and your thoughts about the program.
Well, I'm Linda Buccini Anderson, and this is Lynn Lawrence Murphy, and we're co-chairs to the Women's Action Committee, which is part of the Sons and Daughters of Italy.
Our group is made up of women in leadership roles within the order throughout the country. Our goal is to highlight and make people aware of the many outstanding accomplishments of Italian American women, both past and present, as well as we wish to support and assist women in leadership roles, and most of all, address the needs of women facing the challenges and issues of today's society.
October is the National Domestic Awareness Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Domestic violence, also known as intimate partner violence, is such a relevant and necessary subject to be discussed and addressed. Studies show that not only women, but men are impacted by the intimate partner violence issues. That is why it's such a relevant, important factor to be studied and produced for future review.
The Women's Action Committee is very appreciative of the Jersey Battered Women's Shelter. First of all, for their extensive knowledge, and the work they do providing resources, education, and financial guidance to victims to move forward with their lives.
We want to thank you for watching this webinar. It's a very important and impactful opportunity for everyone to learn much about the domestic violence programs. Thank you very much.
What's the secret to my famous margarita pizza? Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, and cento.
People ask my wife, what's the secret to your bolognese?
A little of this, a pinch of that, and cento. Grandma passed on 2 family secrets. Saute, don't fry,
and always cook with cento.
It's no secret that the best tasting dishes use cento, San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy, with nothing added, just authentic flavor for authentic Italian cooking. Cento, trust your family with our family.
The Women's Action Committee is vital to the functioning of this organization, not only in terms of promoting leadership opportunities, but also addressing issues that are relevant to the community of women, one of which is domestic violence. Obviously, a very, very sad situation, something that's very dear to my heart, having been the former Morris County prosecutor and working very actively to try to eradicate the evils of this terrible disease, I would call it, in this country, and it's only getting worse. So it is my honor to present to you Mary Kovach, Dr. Mary Kovach, who is the National Membership Chairperson of the Order of Sons and Daughters of Italy. She's also a foundation trustee. The foundation is our philanthropic arm of the organization. And Mary, I know you know I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to tell you, also a noted author. I'm looking at one of her books right now. It just happened to be right here. A rock star manager from theory to practice, as well as other books like Don't Cut the Basil and all sorts of other things. I can get a new one coming out. But Dr. Mary, take it from here, please.
Well, thank you, Bob. I appreciate the introduction. So Jersey Battered Women's Services, or JBWS, is a private nonprofit agency that provides safety, support, and solutions for abuse to anyone who lives or works in Morris County, New Jersey. From its grassroots beginnings in 1976, it has become the lead partner for the Morris Family Justice Center, a coordinated one-stop domestic violence resource provided by multiple service agencies. And their mission is the prevention of domestic violence through the protection and empowerment of the victim, the rehabilitation of family members, the advocacy for social reform to prevent partnered violence, and education of the public about domestic violence and its consequences. Joining us today is President and CEO Diane Williams. Diane, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It is such an important topic, and that was quite an introduction that you gave, and I can just skip over the beginning of my presentation because I was going to go into all of that. But I wanted to just stop for a moment and tell you about the founding of JBWS, because most of the domestic violence agencies across the United States had similar beginnings. It was actually started by a group of women that were really concerned that their friends, their neighbors, and their family members didn't have any resources, and they were victims of domestic violence. And so what they did is they had approached the leadership at the time in Morris County. And what was really a common response is that domestic violence doesn't happen here. We're an affluent, educated community. How could that be occurring? And so they really took it upon themselves to start their own hotline in their own houses, start bringing women into their own homes. And in a very short period of time, there was probably 30 women in one of those women's homes. It's a great story. They were doing great work, and the media caught on and did a story on these women. Unfortunately, because of that, the homes were no longer safe places for them to reside. So many of them went back to some pretty unsafe situations. In a very short period of time, there were 2 high-profile murder-suicides in Morris County, and the community really took a stance and said, this can't happen in our community. So it was led by the Junior League of Morristown and the Butler Police Department, but the entire community got together to raise the funds for the first shelter, which opened up in 1978. So from that time, JBWS has really grown to be one of the largest domestic violence organizations in the state of New Jersey. And as you kind of talked about what our mission is, it's a pretty broad mission because it's not just about focusing on providing support and safety to victims, it's also about preventing domestic violence wherever we can. Just to give you a little bit about, you hear the term intimate partner violence and domestic violence often used interchangeably. And really what the difference is domestic violence is a little bit broader and talks about violence that occurs, within somebody that lives in the same household. Intimate partner violence is really abuse that happens in an intimate relationship. And it's really about one person wanting to have power and control over another. Very often it looks like verbal threats, put downs, intimidation, economic abuse, technological abuse, which you're going to hear more about later on in the series that we talk about, threats and intimidation, and physical and sexual violence. This kind of gives you a broader picture of what domestic violence can actually look like, because many people can be experiencing these things and not recognize that they are in an abusive relationship. So remember, it is a pattern of behavior, and you see that power and control are at the center of it. But as you look through, you can see it moves from intimidation and emotional abuse to isolation, denying, minimizing, and blaming behaviors, using children. So making the victim feel guilty about the children, or we've had situations where the perpetrator really tries to control the victim by threatening that they will harm the children. That's also something that is something we see often. Economic abuse, which again, you're going to hear about further on in the series. So that is really cutting off access to resources, just making victims ask for money, putting them in that situation, and really tracking what their spending is. So I want to keep moving on so that we can talk about how prevalent the issue is. So the CDC estimates that 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men, and 1 in 3 teenagers will be victims of violence in their relationship in their lifetime. Now, those statistics were from 2019. I wouldn't be surprised if we did a relook at those statistics today, if we see an increase in that based on all of the things that have been happening out there in society that have really impacted all of us. You can imagine the impact that it's had on victims of domestic violence. So many times I get the question, because we do a lot of work with corporations in Morris County, and they provide support to us, but we also provide a lot of support to them about what can we do? Because looking at the prevalence of those statistics, we know that that's impacting our employees. And whenever possible, we want to prevent that from happening or really provide resources to our employees. So these are some suggestions that we have for employers out there to hold awareness events and educational opportunities for staff. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So that's a perfect time, although throughout the year, it's really helpful to invite your local domestic violence organization in to do a presentation for all of your staff, whether it's virtual, in person, so that they know what they can do if they're in an unsafe situation or their colleague is. Make sure that there's domestic violence materials that are out on display so that people can recognize when they're in unhealthy relationships, but also know what the resources are in your local community. To make sure that there's policies and procedures on the workplace's response to domestic violence. And also too, you want to make sure that you're supporting an employee's access to safety and resources. So often what I get is the question around, what do I do if I'm concerned that someone is in an unsafe relationship? And what we actually created was this document so that people can remember those letters of concern and what they stand for. Now, I'm not going to read that all to you, but I'm just going to summarize that one of the first things that you say is that I'm concerned about you. It's a really great way to open up the conversation. And it's really important to not be judgmental about the situation and really just listen and not criticize. Talk about the observations that you have had. You know, be honest, describe what happened and what your reaction to that is. Make sure that you let them know that no one deserves to be abused. Abusive and controlling behavior is hurtful and has consequences, and make sure that you let them know that. Talk about confidentiality. Many times victims are ashamed or afraid, and they're really not going to share this information. Domestic violence grows in silence. So the way that you can help your colleague, your coworker, your friend know that whatever they tell you is going to be confidential and you're going to keep it private. You're not going to gossip about it. The E is for empathy. Don't judge, empathize with their situation, and let them know that maybe you had this workshop that you're watching today and you found out that there's resources out there that can help. And then one of the most important pieces is around safety. You want to make sure that they are safe. It is a huge concern. So make sure that they speak with someone who knows how to safety plan with them so that in a moment's notice, they can leave an unsafe situation when they're ready to. There's plenty of information that's out there on the internet. Just make sure that if somebody is monitoring your internet use, that you're able to erase that you have visited that site. And finally, naming the problem. Making sure that you say that this is unhealthy or abusive and that you can help direct them to some appropriate resources. So I'm not going to go through all of the programs and services that we have at JBWS, but when we started this conversation, we started talking about really the breadth of the services that we provide. And so one of the things that we have found is that the crisis response calls in the past month have been the highest numbers that our organization has ever experienced. And we really feel like we are still feeling the implications of the pandemic. Domestic violence calls are on the rise. One of the things that you see under safety is our crisis response team. So in every municipality in Morris County, we have volunteers that are dispatched whenever there's a call that goes into a police station so that that volunteer can provide support, resources, safety plan, and get them connected to the services, legal advocacy services, shelter, talk to them about what the process is for filing a restraining order, and really provide the support that they need because it's a very scary situation to be in. In regard to some of the supportive services we provide a great deal of counseling services. Most of our services for counseling are provided in a group format. And that's because research has indicated that the best type of counseling services for victims of domestic violence is really when they're surrounded by people who have been through very similar situations. One of the other pieces of counseling that we provide is the work that we do with those that are actually perpetuating the abuse. Now, sometimes we get a little pushback around that, like, why would you be working with those that are actually using abuse in the relationships? Aren't you supposed to be working with victims? So if we are not working with those individuals that are actually using abuse in their relationships, domestic violence will never end. It will just find another victim. So our work at our Jersey Center for Nonviolence with those that are using abuse in the relationships is one of the most important prevention services that we provide. Now, the Morris Family Justice Center is an evidenced community response to domestic violence. And so what that means is that it is the first visible place for victims of domestic violence that they can just walk in off the street and say, I need help. I don't know what to do. And in there, and this Family Justice Center is a model across the country. So check and see if you have one in your neighborhood where you can walk in and have access to 10 to 15 different services all in one location, from housing to social services, sexual assault counseling, domestic violence counseling, legal advocacy services, so many different opportunities all in one location just to stop the necessity of that victim bouncing from place to place. And then finally, the solutions that we talk about are really what we can do around prevention. We do a lot of community awareness. So wherever there is a group, I will go if someone will listen, because I, can't stop saying it. Domestic violence grows in silence. And so you need to start having some conversations out there in your community, in your family, to talk about the issue, because the issue is on the rise. When I was preparing for this presentation today, I was looking at some national resources, and one of them is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And I have a slide at the end with that information. But one of the things that came up, which I've never seen before, was just know that you may be waiting 15 to 20 minutes if you access our hotline because our call volumes are so high. That is something that I have never seen. So one of the other things we're incredibly proud of is our teen dating violence prevention. On an annual basis, we educate around 10,000 of our youth in our middle schools, our high schools, our athletic programs, and our universities. And we are talking about healthy and unhealthy relationships and what to do if you or one of your friends is in an unsafe situation. So that's us. So, this is very specific to our organization, but really, if you want to do something, you want to do something about the issue, you want to do something about the issue in your community, you can look for your local domestic violence organization, support the events that they're having. They often have different ways that you can assist on their website. So it's donating, financial donations are always welcome, gift cards, and many times they'll have a wish list on there depending on the end of the what time of the year it is. Here is how to follow us on social media. So it's really one of the most simple things that you can help to do is to follow a domestic violence organization like ours, and then like and share some of the information that we share on our sites, because you never know if the person that is reading what you just shared is in a situation that the information that they receive might just make a difference. So that's our information, how I can be reached, our hotline number, but also the National Domestic Violence Hotline, their telephone number, and also their website address.
What's the secret to my famous margarita pizza? Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, and cento.
People ask my wife, what's the secret to your bolognese?
A little of this, a pinch of that, and cento. Grandma passed on 2 family secrets. Saute, don't fry,
and always cook with cento.
It's no secret that the best tasting dishes use cento, San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy, with nothing added, just authentic flavor for authentic Italian cooking. Cento, trust your family with our family.
The thing that it strikes me about domestic violence, and to my friends that are out there saying, well, that's not me, it's not what I know, is that I'm pretty convinced that someone that's close to you, that you love, or a friend of yours, is a subject of domestic violence in one way, shape, or form. And Diane, you said something that was, I remember being prosecutor, and I told you this when we first started talking, and one of your people came and gave a lecture about domestic violence in affluent and well-educated communities that blew me away, and who literally explained that sometimes there's less help for them because they have more social stigma about coming in and reporting it. And also the statistic that you had about men, 1 in 7 are victims of domestic violence. Going back in my career, I know that it's very difficult for men to, especially children, young men, to report sexual abuse and domestic violence because they feel that it makes them quote unquote effeminate. It's not societally accepted. So there's all these taboos that go on with regard to this. So shining a light, and for our audience that's listening to this, the fact that you share this with people, you may be saving somebody's life. I mean, literally. When I was the Morris County prosecutor, Diane, whenever there was a domestic violence related homicide, of which unfortunately there were many, we would go, gosh, did something happen in our system that it broke down that led to this tragedy? And we would always say in the homicide squad, today's domestic violence is tomorrow's murder. And there was a lot of truth to that. So could you speak to the idea that I think people are listening to you, and if they go on your website, they're going to be like, wow, JBWS, I don't think anybody, I don't know the whole country, I don't, but I can't imagine anybody does more than what you guys do. Are there places where, if you're in Washington State or if you're down in Texas, how do people find access to people like you, or can they contact you and you can help them find where they need to go?
Sure. I mean, one of the things for that National Domestic Violence Hotline, that's actually one of the things that they do is they have the resources in every state. There also is a domestic violence coalition in every state in the United States. So that's another place where they can find information about their local domestic violence shelter and services. And, I can't speak for all the different states that people are in. I can just speak for New Jersey itself. So there is a mandate in New Jersey that each county has to have a shelter and it has to have a hotline, and that's it. And then so all of the counties, even in New Jersey, have a variety of resources, kind of just based on what that organization is providing, the issue, the resources in the community. We are incredibly, incredibly fortunate in Morris County to have the support that we have in regard to the programs and services from corporations to foundations, to our legislators, to our community partners, our volunteers. We're just incredibly lucky, which really allows us to have that breadth of services.
JBWS has always been a shining beacon of light in this area of darkness. And I am proud, as the national president of the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy. We're the largest and oldest Italian-American organization in the United States, but that's not the special sauce. The special sauce with us is that we are local chapters. We are working in the community. We are volunteering. We are making a difference, donating money to our charities and disaster relief and our veterans causes. And you know what? This may become another cause of the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, because it's a great one. So if you are interested in joining this organization that's making a difference in the lives of other people, then Order Sons and Daughters of Italy is the organization for you. Diane, thank you so much. Look forward to the next webinar.
For more information on Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America and how to join, please visit osdia.org. Please also follow us on social media. The Italian America show is sponsored by Full Sponsorship, Cento Fine Foods, trust your family with our family. The Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors who handle criminal matters, domestic violence, and municipal court throughout the state of New Jersey. Dr. K, the management professor and author of Rockstar Manager, From Theory to Practice. The authors of the #1 international best-selling cookbook, Don't Cut the Basil, 5 Generations of Authentic Italian Recipes. Dr. Mark D'Annunzio, National 4th Vice President, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. The Grand Lodge of New York. The Grand Lodge of Delaware. The Grand Lodge of Ohio. The Grand Lodge of Virginia. The Grand Lodge of Rhode Island. The Grand Lodge of Maryland. The Grand Lodge of the Northwest, representing Oregon and Washington. Long Shot Productions, get back in the game. ACMT, Excellence in Aerospace Manufacturing. And by Silver Spring Capital. Silver Spring Capital Wealth Management is a proud and longtime supporter of the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America.